Sitting here tonight, just watching the rain wash out the streetlights outside the window, it really transforms Atchison into this entirely different place.
Oh, absolutely. It gets so quiet.
Yeah, the traffic is just totally gone. It's just us, the rain on the glass, and, well, the static of the old equipment in here.
It really is the perfect kind of isolated late-night atmosphere. The kind of night where you just want to sit by a radio and listen to the ghosts of old summers.
Exactly. And that is exactly what we are going to do tonight. We pulled a rather incredible artifact from the archives for this deep dive.
I am so glad we chose this one.
Right. It's a 1948 broadcast from CBS's Studio One, starring a very young Burgess Meredith. It's an original half-hour drama called Sometime Every Summer.
Such a beautiful title.
It is. But our mission tonight, and for you listening at home, maybe driving down a dark highway right now or just looking out your own window, our mission isn't just to recap an old radio play.
No, it's so much bigger than that.
We want to dig into a really uncomfortable psychological question that this broadcast brings up.
Which is, why do our memories of intense emotion so reliably betray us?
Yes. How context dictates our attraction, how class structures silently author our romantic lives.
And honestly, the neurobiological reality of how our brains just rewrite and eventually erase our pasts.
Which is terrifying if you think about it.
Oh, it really is. And that core question of memory betrayal is what elevates this piece of audio. I mean, it takes it from a simple post-war romance into a pretty sophisticated psychological case study.
Right, because when you listen to Sometime Every Summer, you aren't getting a real-time, objective account of events.
No, not at all. You are hearing the subjective, highly fragmented, and totally unreliable process of recall.
We're dealing with this advertising executive, Clem Waldron, played by Meredith. And he's just trying to make sense of this failed summer romance with a working-class woman named Mary Thomas.
He's trying to figure out why an emotion that felt so mythic, so life-altering on an isolated island, just completely collapsed the second it was exposed to, the normal atmospheric pressure of a Tuesday in Vancouver.
A normal Tuesday in the city, yeah. And the way 1940s radio facilitates that exploration is just fundamentally different from modern media.
Oh, it's night and day.
I want to focus on that medium for a second. Because modern visual media, it just hands you everything.
Yeah, the whole sensory package.
Exactly. It hands you the lighting, the set design, the background extras, the color palette. It asks literally nothing of you except your passive attention.
You just sit there and receive it.
Right. But this era of radio, especially the really high-end, dramatic production of Studio One, or even those classic BBC domestic broadcasts, it operates on this principle of sensory deprivation.
Which is brilliant, neurologically speaking.
Because by stripping away the visual channel entirely, the brain is forced to work. It enters this active, high-effort state of co-creation.
Yeah, when Burgess Meredith speaks into that microphone about a dark porch and a distant boat motor, the broadcast is really just giving you the blueprint.
You are acting as the neuroarchitect.
Exactly. You're physically building the island in your own mind, using the raw materials of your own memories and your own emotional associations.
And that process, the active co-creation, is why audio storytelling often results in such a deeper emotional encoding.
Well, there's a concept in cognitive psychology about the allocation of working memory. When you're overwhelmed with rapid visual cuts and constant stimulation, your brain is just processing external data.
You're just trying to keep up.
Right. But when you're listening to a single voice in a seemingly empty room, your internal visualization takes over entirely.
And Meredith's performance is engineered entirely around that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He's not projecting to the back of a theater. He's not doing a big, heroic voice.
He sounds so tired.
He sounds weary. He's utilizing the microphone to capture these micro-vocalizations, the slight sighs, the hesitations, the cadence of a man who is just exhausted by his own memory.
It feels like he's sitting across from you in a late-night diner, confessing a minor sin.
Yes. It bypasses all the critical faculties we usually apply to a performance, and it triggers the part of the brain that responds to genuine human vulnerability.
I'd almost say it goes beyond vulnerability, though. It relies on this assumption of shared isolation.
How do you mean?
Well, there's a very specific type of mid-century loneliness baked into this broadcast. I mean, think about the context. It's 1948.
Right after the war.
Exactly. The world is aggressively reassembling itself after a massive global trauma. People are going back to strict societal roles, the daily grind of advertising agencies, department stores.
They're locking back into the machine of normal life.
Yeah. And this radio play taps into a collective desire to just escape that rigidity. But it doesn't offer a fantasy escape.
No, it actually dissects the fantasy.
It totally does. It functions almost like a Midwestern Rashomon, though it's set up in Vancouver.
And predating Kurosawa's film by a couple of years, which is fascinating.
That's true, yeah. But you have these three people who lived the exact same 2 weeks on a West Coast island resort, and they remember entirely different realities.
It really shows how differently our brains encode identical events based on what we want out of them.
Let's look at those differing encodings. Starting with the cynical perspective, we have Mac McFedderies.
Oh, Mac, Clem's colleague at the advertising agency.
Right. Mac and this other friend, Charlie, they provide the baseline reality of this vacation.
Their motivation is entirely physiological. They're just exhausted men looking for a break.
Charlie literally says his only intention is to, quote, sit in the sun and sweat and die for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's their whole plan. So when they find out there are 3 young women renting the cabin right next door...
Mac processes that through a purely utilitarian lens.
Completely. He recognizes the biological reality of proximity and boredom. I think he calls it a sharp awareness of a bachelor's loneliness.
Which is such a grounded phrase.
It is. There's no mythic narrative happening in Mac's brain at all. He's operating on a purely pragmatic level.
Which makes the divergence during that porch scene so stark.
Oh, the lamplight scene.
Yeah. The men walk over to the neighboring cabin at night. It's totally dark. A match is struck. A single table lamp is lit. And Mary steps out of the shadows.
And Mac, he acknowledges she's beautiful. He registers the visual input accurately.
But Clem's brain processes that exact same input as a traumatic event.
A literal trauma, yeah. He describes seeing her in that lamplight as a hit on the head.
The external stimuli are identical for both men, but Clem's internal interpretation is radically different.
He's instantly altering his perception to frame her not as just a girl next door, but as an apparition, a goddess almost.
He anchors her entirely to the liminality of the space.
A liminal space being a threshold, right? A place that exists completely outside of normal societal structures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a resort island that is dead for 6 months of the year is the ultimate liminal space. The normal rules of gravity, social gravity, economic gravity, that just don't apply there.
They aren't wearing tailored suits, they're just in bathing trunks.
And the women aren't in their work uniforms.
Right. Without those visual cues that usually shout our social status or our class, they are temporarily stripped of their societal identities. They become blank slates to each other.
So Clem is projecting his own desperate need for meaning onto Mary, because the environment gives him permission to do so.
He constructs this illusion of profound intimacy just based on making meals together and looking at starry skies.
But I'm curious how you interpret Mary's side of this, because Clem is obviously suffering from this romantic fever.
Oh, a total fever. He proposes marriage on a wooden dock to a 22-year-old he's known for 2 weeks.
It's absurd. But Mary's perspective is grounded in a very different reality.
A much harsher socioeconomic reality.
Yeah, she's an elevator operator in a Vancouver department store, 2 generations removed from Italian immigrants.
She had to pool her money with friends just to afford a share of the cabin's rent.
Exactly. So do you think she actually loves him? Or is she just mirroring the elevated status he's assigned to her?
I think it's a really complex mix of both. Mary shows a shocking amount of psychological self-awareness for a character from a 1940s drama.
She really does.
When she's talking to her friends about his proposal, she's super uncomfortable. She literally says that summertime fools a girl about love.
She gets it. She intuitively understands context-dependent emotion.
She knows the island is a vacuum, but, and this is the heartbreaking part, the human ego is so susceptible to positive reinforcement.
Especially when it bridges a massive class divide.
Exactly. Back in the city, Mary is practically invisible. She's just a mechanical part of a department store.
Defined entirely by her uniform.
Yes. But on the island, when she's reflected in the eyes of this educated, affluent executive, she's seen as a beautiful animal, a wonderful gesture of nature.
She falls in love with the version of herself that exists in his eyes.
And the real tragedy is that she keeps the memory of that elevated self long after the relationship is over.
Even years later, right?
Yeah, she's married to a guy named Rico, living her normal life. But she still longs for the funny look Clem gave her. She's mourning the loss of that psychological mirror.
That makes the collision with reality so profoundly destructive.
Oh, it's brutal.
The vacation ends. The temporal vacuum just collapses. They get on the boat back to Vancouver, and the liminal space is replaced by the rigid geography of the city.
The unforgiving geography, really.
And Clem drives out to the far east side to visit her at home. This is where we really have to look at the mechanics of context-dependent attraction.
Because their island romance was basically a deep-sea fish brought up to the surface.
That's a perfect analogy. It functioned beautifully under the isolated pressure of the vacation.
But the second it was exposed to the normal atmosphere of urban reality, it just physically couldn't hold its shape.
It exploded.
It did. The environmental shift causes massive cognitive dissonance for Clem.
Talk about that arrival scene at her house.
Well, he gets to her address, and the house is this narrow two-story thing wedged between a confectionery and a noisy metal workshop.
It sounds suffocating.
It is. The audio environment is so aggressive. A blaring radio, loud family members, just the general chaos of a working-class neighborhood.
And the smell of the family supper hanging heavy in the air.
Yeah. In an hour, all the social heuristics that the island erased are violently slapped back into place.
Clem is used to the curated quiet of his advertising world, and suddenly he's confronted with the raw machinery of Mary's actual life.
But I don't think it was just the environment that destroyed the connection.
You don't think it was the noise and the smell of supper?
I mean, that played a part, but I think the script points to a much more microscopic trigger for his rejection.
Ah, right. It wasn't just the loud brother George or Papa Thomas or Everett Fuller lounging in the living room.
No. The fatal blow to the whole illusion is delivered by a piece of clothing.
The white cotton suit.
The white cotton suit.
Oh, God, that detail. It's excruciating to listen to.
It just breaks your heart. When Mary comes downstairs, Clem notices two devastating things. The suit has been laundered too often, and it's too small.
And her hair, which was loose and wild on the beach,
is now severely braided and pinned tight to her head.
The listener instantly understands the tragic irony there. Mary obviously picked that suit because it's her best, most formal outfit.
She's trying to elevate herself to match what she thinks is the status of an advertising executive.
She's dressing for his world.
But by doing that, she uses a garment that explicitly broadcasts her lack of capital. An over-laundered, ill-fitting suit in 1948 that is a universal marker of working-class struggle.
By trying to bridge the gap, she accidentally shines a spotlight on it.
And it shatters the projection Clem had built. It's an incredible demonstration of how our brains use environmental anchors to assess viability.
Right, because on the beach, everyone is just in bathing suits. The markers of youth and health are what matter.
Everyone looks equal.
But in the city, tailoring, fabric quality, aesthetic presentation, those become the primary heuristics for social compatibility.
Clem's reaction is deeply rooted in aesthetic classism. The goddess he worshipped is instantly recategorized by his brain as a tired, working-class girl who's trying too hard.
They try to go dancing, they try to sit in the theater, but it's dead.
The chemical composition of the relationship is permanently altered. The deep-sea fish is on the surface, and it's a mess.
And the aftermath of that realization is what elevates this from just a sad story to a really intense study in neurobiological erasure.
Clem leaves her house. He makes the obligatory hollow promise to call her.
A few days later, he's transferred to another city for work.
And he never picks up the phone.
Never contacts her again. But what's fascinating is his self-diagnosis. He doesn't use the typical defense mechanisms.
No, he doesn't invent some flaw in Mary to justify ghosting her.
He admits, with that exhausted voice of his, that he had this sickening realization. He was a snob.
He recognizes that his profound love was literally just temporary desire wrapped in the illusion of a summer night.
It was entirely dependent on aesthetic conditions.
Which requires a brutal level of introspection to admit your own superficiality like that.
He realizes he harvested this genuine, vulnerable emotion from her and threw it away the second it wasn't aesthetically pleasing anymore.
But even with all that guilt, the ultimate tragedy of sometime every summer isn't the failure of the romance.
It's the mechanical decay of the memory itself.
Yes, the brain is an incredibly efficient organ. It simply cannot sustain the energetic cost of acute emotional pain forever.
It engages in synaptic pruning.
Exactly. Over time, it trims away the emotional weight. It dulls the sensory details.
And eventually it starts to discard the factual data entirely.
Which brings us to the final crushing moments of the broadcast.
There's no swelling orchestra.
Yeah.
No big dramatic climax.
Just Clem, speaking from somewhere in the future, looking back at the wreckage.
He says he thinks of her sometime every summer. He has a vague sense of the island. Maybe the ghost of moonlight on the water.
And then he delivers that line that completely subverts every Hollywood narrative ever written.
He says, I can't even remember her name.
It is terrifying.
The brain has pruned the memory so aggressively that it deleted the core identifying marker of the human being he once asked to marry.
It's a testament to the terrifying power of time. We have this comforting delusion that our most intense emotions are permanent fixtures of who we are.
We assume that if we felt strongly enough to propose on a dark dock, it must leave a permanent scar.
But this old radio play gives us a much more melancholic truth. The human mind is designed to heal, and part of healing is erasure.
The people we think we can't survive without gradually devolve into shadows.
The pivotal moments of our youth decay into just well-worn anecdotes.
And eventually the anecdotes lose their structure until only an emotional ghost remains.
Sitting here in this quiet room, watching the rain distort the lights outside, listening to the static of that broadcast fade out.
It's exactly like watching a photograph slowly submit to the sun.
The sharp edges soften, the colors bleed out.
The faces blur into anonymity, and eventually you are left holding a blank piece of paper, wondering why you even kept it in the first place.
It's a sobering reminder of our own impermanence.
Captured entirely through one solitary voice, speaking into a microphone decades before we were even born.
It really challenges you to examine the fidelity of your own archives, you know. We trust our memories implicitly, but they're constantly being rewritten.
Redacted by our current emotional needs.
Right. And understanding that instability doesn't devalue the past, but it does demand we approach our own histories with a bit of humility.
As we close the broadcast tonight, we want to leave you with a question to turn over in your mind.
While you're looking out your own window or watching the dashboard lights,
consider the artifacts in your own mind. What specific memory are you holding on to right now that belongs strictly to the vacuum of a vanished season?
And if you could somehow extract that person or that feeling from the safety of the past,
and force them into the harsh, uncompromising light of a rainy Tuesday in the city, would the illusion survive the trip?
May you find some measure of peace with the memories you managed to keep.
And a quiet grace for the ones that have inevitably slipped away. Thank you for joining us on Chesterton Radio tonight. Stay safe, and we will speak to you next time.